Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 2nd of June, now it's 11:30, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update today, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments that you may find interesting, and I will start with the Belgorod region, if I may, and I will share with you latest information that we have, which is a statement from Russian Defense Ministry, according to which during yesterday's clashes on the borderline between Belgorod region of Russian Federation and Kharkov region of Ukraine, Zelensky's regime did lost more than 50 soldiers, 4 armored personnel carriers, 1 BM-21 multi-launch rocket system, which is Soviet-era MLRS, and 1 pickup truck, I guess with mounted heavy machine gun. So after quite significant casualties that Ukrainian armed forces did had during these clashes on the borderline, rest of the units that were actively trying to cross border and conduct offensive operation in direction of Shebekina, they retreat deep inside Ukrainian territory, and for now we don't have information that any borderline clashes are taking place. Although just a few minutes ago Russian media did report that early morning today Zelensky's regime once again shelled a few settlements next to border between Russia and Ukraine in Belgorod region. So unfortunately shelling of Belgorod region is continuing. During the day probably we'll have additional information about current situation, and of course I will share it on my Telegram page and on my next update. Let me continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report, according to which 2 Ukrainian drones during the nighttime did strike Russian Energo facilities in Smolensk region of Russian Federation. And we have statement from governor of region Vasily Anokhin, who said that despite these strikes there were no casualties reported on the ground among civilians, and there was no significant damage to Energo facilities. So maybe Russian electronic warfare system did work in this case, and maybe these drones lost orientation and hit not exactly their targets. But fortunately there was no casualties among civilians on the ground, which is good news in this context. Next information is also about Ukrainian drone strikes, attempt of Ukrainian side to strike this time Kursk region. And yesterday I did share video footage on my Telegram channel how Russian air defense systems were operating in Kursk direction. And according to governor of region Roman Starovoyt, all drones that were launched by Zelensky's regime in direction of Kursk and Kursk region were shut down, so there was no significant damage reported on the ground, and there was no casualties among civilians. So as you can see, Zelensky's regime on daily basis are trying to hit deep inside Russian territory by using long-range weaponry that was delivered to Kiev by Western elites, and unfortunately this will continue as long as conflict is taking place. Once Russian side will achieve decisive victory in this conflict, then this kind of activity will of course cease to exist. And the next news is reported by RIA Novosti, and this time about Frontline situation. And according to Aladinov, head of Bakhmut Special Forces, Mariinka in Donetsk direction is controlled by Russian side about 70%, and there were some reports, even head of DPR, Donetsk People's Republic, Denis Pushilin, did made statement that in near future, in coming days, maybe weeks, Mariinka will be fully liberated because it has strategic meaning. So I guess this direction is one of the priorities after situation has been resolved in direction of Artyomovsk, which is Bakhmut. As you know, this town has two names, and let me show you on the map this direction. This is Mariinka, and if you remember, I did make prediction yesterday that according to information that is available from open sources, I was guessing, basically it was informed guess that Mariinka was under Russian control about 70%, and Aladinov, head of Bakhmut Special Forces, basically made exactly the same statement yesterday late afternoon. When it comes to overall situation on the front line, it's quite usual stuff. In Kherson region, it's artillery duels between the sides. Zaporozhye region, exactly the same, mainly artillery duels between the sides. Donetsk direction, it's artillery duels and close range fight, especially in direction of Mariinka and Avdiivka. And if you take a look on Avdiivka on the map here, you can probably see some kind of resemblance with situation that was developing few months ago around Artyomovsk or Bakhmut. And I guess if Zelensky's regime did not learn anything from catastrophic defeat that they had in Bakhmut direction, then they will probably send more and more reinforcements in the direction of Avdiivka. In that case, it's quite possible that Russian side will try to use Avdiivka direction as a kind of magnet, as a kind of trap to neutralize more and more Ukrainian units. But if Zelensky's regime did learn something from defeat in Bakhmut, then they will probably don't even try to hold on to Avdiivka too much. And in that case, before end of this month, probably we will see that this city will become under full Russian control. When it comes to other lines, other directions on the front line, Seversk, in direction of Seversk, it's Belgorodka area that are hot point traditionally, basically, and I guess in foreseeable future, Russian side will probably try to establish full control over this gray zone and conduct and begin its offensive movement to encircle Seversk. But at this moment, major direction when it comes to northern part of front line is Kupiansk. And yesterday we had some reports that right now forward units of Russian armed forces are in about 1500 meters from Kupiansk itself. And I guess in coming days Russian side will become even more active, especially because Ukrainian forces are using this bridgehead in direction of Belgorod region to shell borderline settlements of Russian Federation. So even if Russian general staff was planning to conduct offensive operations in direction of Kupiansk a little bit later, probably they will be forced to become more proactive in coming days and weeks to establish control over this bridgehead and minimize shelling of Russian side. That's overall situation on the front line. So let me continue now. And next information is from Ukraine. Only now, head of ground forces of Ukraine, General Alexander Syrskyi, did make statement that Ukrainian armed forces stop all offensive operations in direction of Artyomovsk, in direction of Bakhmut. Basically, this statement probably we can take as a partial confirmation from Zelensky's regime that they did lost control over the Bakhmut. And when it comes to these local scale offensive operations that Zelensky's regime did conduct in Bakhmut direction, if you remember, I was saying that probably this offensive was conducted just to establish some control over the country roads from Artyomovsk to Chisov Yar, so that they will withdraw what was left from Bakhmut garrison without heavy casualties. And once they did withdraw their forces from Bakhmut, of course, entire this so-called offensive of Zelensky's regime in this direction stopped, and right now it's Russian forces that are conducting offensive movements, offensive operations in this direction. Local scale offensive operations, but still it's important because it's only a matter of time, and Chisov Yar and Konstantinovka on the west and southwest side of Bakhmut will become next hot points on the front line. Let me continue, and by the way, when it comes to situation on the front during the previous night, Russian side did conducted yet another a large-scale drone and missile strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of Zelensky's regime. Many areas were hit. In many areas, military infrastructure of Zelensky's regime was targeted, and quite significant attacks was reported on Kiev. And on my Telegram channel, I did share this footage, for example, where we can see approximate area where air defense systems of Zelensky's regime are working. Then we can see explosions. Probably Russian missiles did hit these air defense systems, and as a result of damage that was done to maybe IRIS-T air defense system, maybe Patreon air defense system, there is no additional information about exactly what kind of system was damaged. We can see on this footage here that at some point this damaged air defense system is launching missiles, and those missiles, like you can see right now, are hitting ground, maybe civilian infrastructure or civilian apartment. So that's once again highlights unprofessional conduct from armed forces of Ukraine when they are using air defense systems inside the cities, and they are trying to shut down drones and missiles over the cities. In this case, you can clearly see that this air defense missile did not went to any air target. It just hit ground, and at least for now we don't have what was damaged on the ground with this hit, but if it was a civilian apartment, I'm quite sure Zelensky's regime will state that it was Russian missile, when in reality it was a missile of air defense systems of Zelensky's regime itself. Let me continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report. Quite interesting information about statement that head of Hungary, Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, made. According to him, EU or Western elites have to stop Ukrainian so-called counteroffensive before it's even begun, because it will be devastation for Ukraine, and it will be bloodbath basically for Ukrainian armed forces. And basically Orban did repeat exactly what I was saying for so many weeks now, or even months, that, you know, it was, I mean, you don't have to be general, for God's sake, to do some analytics based on information that we have from open sources, to realize that Zelensky's regime don't have enough manpower or military equipment and ammunition reserves to conduct large-scale counteroffensive in direction of Azov Sea, to cut this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia. And I was saying that even though Zelensky's regime do have about 80,000 reserves, last reserves, that are more or less battle ready, and these reserves are right now concentrated mainly in Kherson region, Zaporozhye region, and Dnipropetrovsk region. If they will try to use these last reserves to conduct these local scale offensives, as Western elites are demanding, especially from Washington and London, it will be suicide for Ukrainian armed forces. It will be a suicidal mission, and beginning of that counteroffensive, even local scale counteroffensive from Ukrainian armed forces, will be also beginning of the end of presidency of Zelensky and his regime as a whole, and also beginning of the end of Ukrainian armed forces as more or less capable entity. And I guess Orban, who has much more information than we do, did analyze all information he says that, and come up with this kind of statement that if Zelensky's regime will start offensive operations, it will be devastation for Ukraine, which is absolutely true. In first hours or first days, yes, Zelensky's regime may have some gains, may have some local scale success, but once Russian defense lines will stop forward movement of Ukrainian brigades, then it will be Russian turn to conduct offensive operations, and I'm quite sure Russian side will decimate those brigades of Ukrainian armed forces that will participate in this offensive or counteroffensive operations. It's just, I mean, it's too clear, really, and you don't have to be general, some sorts of, to understand this. And once again, if Orban is also saying exactly the same stuff, then I guess my reading of big picture, and not just mine, but there are many of you probably are have exactly the same opinion, and we can hear almost the similar opinions on other channels also. So, you know, it's just too obvious, really. Too obvious. But let me continue. Of course, Western elites not gonna listen to Orban, and they will push Zelensky's regime to start these offensive operations anyway, because they are desperate for any good news and they don't really care what will eventually happen to those Ukrainian brigades and Ukrainian armed forces, or to Zelensky's regime for that matter. But once again, I mean, it's good to know that our reading of big picture is correct, because if Orban, who has much more information, is saying exactly the same, then probably we have quite good understanding of situation on the front line. Next information is reported by Interfax news agency, according to which Deputy Chairman of Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, did make statement that Russian military-industrial complex will build about 600 tanks this year, which is quite a big number. I don't think any other military-industrial complex of any other countries are capable right now to build or modernize 600 tanks in a year. It's a huge number, really. It's a huge number, and I guess Russian factories that are involved in Russian manufacturing plants that are involved in production of tanks and armored personnel carriers are working 24/7 in regime 24/7 to meet all the goals that are, you know, to meet needs of Russian armed forces, let me say this way. So it's quite interesting news. And this is also, by the way, we have information from Kommersant that was published on Kommersant newspaper, according to which Swiss Parliament of Switzerland decline changes in law, according to which Switzerland will be allowed to re-export Leopard-1, more than 90 Leopard-1 tanks to Germany, so that then those tanks will be transferred to Ukraine. And according to Swiss parliamentarians, they cannot vote for these changes in the law, because in that case Switzerland will lose its neutral status, its status of a neutral state. And yes, what you're gonna say about this? Switzerland already lost this neutral status, maybe not officially, but no one country in this world is seeing Switzerland as a neutral state anymore. This attempt of Swiss parliamentarians to do some damage control is, I mean, very much delayed. It's too late now. It's too late, and I guess Washington and London will probably press Swiss parliamentarians to have some, you know, change of mind, let's say, and in coming days or weeks we will probably see that these Swiss Leopard-1 tanks have been delivered to Ukraine anyway. It's quite unfortunate, especially for Swiss society, that this country has lost status of neutral state de facto, maybe not de jure, but de facto, because they did enjoy all the benefits of neutrality for decades and decades, and now they are losing investments, they are losing trust, and of course Swiss economy will not crash immediately or in a year or 2 years time, but eventually in 10-15 years time Swiss economy will be hurt very significantly, and Swiss citizens will definitely feel it. And they may not recognize at that moment why Swiss economy is doing so bad, but beginning of decline of Swiss economy has started right now, these times, when Swiss government, Swiss elites decided to act on behalf of Western elites against Russian Federation. And by the way, you know, maybe for now Swiss elites are playing this game that they will don't send tanks to Germany, so that then these tanks will end up in Ukraine. But there is plenty of weapons in Ukraine already that are produced in Switzerland or are or have components that was produced in by Swiss manufacturers. So as I said, it's too late for damage control, and nobody ever will receive Switzerland as a neutral state in this world. That's a obvious fact, really. Let me continue. This is Interfax is reporting that Macron, president of France, after foreign minister of Germany, Baerbock, and after foreign minister of Hungary, Szijjártó, also made statements about possibility that of Ukraine joining NATO, and he said that for now Ukraine cannot join NATO. Basically, Macron says some obvious stuff, and yes, it's quite unfortunate that the level of degradation of Western elites is in such a scale that nowadays they are forced to talk in this primitive in this primitive terms, because it was too obvious from very beginning that Ukraine cannot join NATO and will not join NATO. But you know, because of this crazy Western propaganda, crazy Western anti-Russian propaganda, they are now forced to make these kind of primitive statements to yet again do some damage control. To make sure that societies in these Western states will not ask too many questions. It's unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. How anyone could seriously think that Ukraine will join NATO. I mean, how? It's just, I don't know. Unbelievable. Let me continue. This is TASS News Agency's report, according to which in 2023, Russian Federation will form two new armies, 5 new divisions, and 26 new brigades, which is quite significant development. And I guess military personnel in Russian army will increase. We don't have numbers here, but if you take into account that we are talking about 2 armies, one in Moscow direction and one in Leningrad direction or St. Petersburg direction, we are talking about 5 new divisions and 26 new brigades. One division is about 10-12,000 soldiers. One brigade is about 4-5,000 soldiers. So I guess Russian army will increase at least from 300 to 500,000 personnel, which is quite significant number, really. But yet again, this is my guess, because there is no exact data about number that Russian army will increase in terms of military personnel. Let me continue now, and this is TASS News. And by the way, this kind of development definitely raises question for what Russia is preparing, for what kind of future developments, because it's obvious that these newly formed military units will, you know, these units have been created for a future. They will not be created right away, and they will not participate in this conflict in Ukraine, because I guess before end of this year or in the beginning of 2024, this conflict will end anyway, by unconditional victory of Russian Federation over the Western elites. So Russia is preparing for something big, and it should be. It should be, because Western elites cannot be trusted, and who knows where they will try to provoke conflict after Ukraine. Let me continue. This is TASS News Agency's report about very interesting development that took place in US. So according to this article, which is based on publication in The Guardian, United States military did test artificial intelligence on the drone, and this drone has had a mission to eliminate enemy positions. And during this operation, operator of the drone was intervening in operation and artificial intelligence decided that operator is an obstacle to achieve its targets, its goals, and it opened fire on operator. It decided to neutralize operator itself, which is which looks like some kind of episode from apocalyptic movie, isn't it? When artificial intelligence is turning on humans. So this test was conducted by US Air Force, and to be honest, even though result was very bad, because AI turned on operator because it decided that operator is obstacle. But unfortunately, we have no guarantees that these kind of experiments will not continue. And of course, when I'm saying that AI did decided to terminate operator, it was not armed. This drone was not armed, so all decisions was made virtually. But still, nevertheless, it's a significant development, and unfortunately, we don't have guarantees that U.S. militaries or militaries of other countries also will not continue experiments with AI and weapon systems. And unfortunately, it's only a matter of time when AIs, some systems that are operated by AIs will, in mode of full autonomy, will attack humans. It's only a matter of time, because I have no trust in military systems that are operated by AI. I don't know about you, but I definitely don't trust AIs in weapon systems. It's just too dangerous. It's just too dangerous. And this experiment did highlight exactly that. Let me continue, and this is TASS News Agency's report, according to which official representative of head of UN did make statement that Russia is creating obstacles in the grain deal, and ships cannot conduct their operations. They cannot export from Ukraine agricultural goods, and Russian side does this with demand that Russian ammonium should be distributed also. So as long as Russian ammonium is not distributed through this grain deal, it looks like Moscow will try to not fully stop this grain deal, but at least create some obstacles on this path. And by the way, when it comes to ammonium, many of you probably do remember what I did said when Ukrainian side did conduct this so-called counteroffensive on the flanks of Bakhmut. At that time, I did say that maybe behind the scenes there were some negotiations that Russian side will give a humanitarian corridor to Bakhmut garrison so that they will withdraw, and in return, Zelensky's regime maybe will agree to reopen this pipeline of ammonium that goes through Russia and Ukraine, and by which Russian side did exported the ammonium for billions and billions of dollars every year. So now Russian side is demanding re-export of Russian ammonia to begin, and I guess Kiev, Zelensky's regime will agree on this in coming days. So I'm not saying that there is definitely any connection between that episode in Bakhmut and this episode in grain deal and ammonium, but who knows? Maybe there are some connections. Maybe there was some negotiations behind the scenes, because even during the war times, negotiations are taking place. You know, not on the public display, but it's just stuff that happens, like it or not. But that's quite usual stuff since the beginning of I don't know, human civilization. During the conflict, sides do conduct negotiations about different topics. So once again, maybe my guess is wrong in this case, but maybe not. I guess in coming days, Zelensky's regime will agree to reopen that pipeline, ammonia pipeline that goes from Russia through Ukraine. Let me continue. This is RT's report, according to which Russia will become India's top fertilizer supplier once again. Ammonia, as you know, ammonia is a crucial component in fertilizer, to produce fertilizers, and Russia is one of the major fertilizer producer in the world, and in agricultural sector, Russian fertilizers do play a huge role worldwide. And according to RT's report, Russia now is on its path to become a major supplier of fertilizers to India, which is a huge huge deal for Russian economy and the Russian industry. And we have numbers here. Exports of the product of fertilizers throughout the past fiscal year have surpassed $3 billion. So as you can see, Russia is exporting not just oil and gas. Russia has much more to offer to this world, and you know, maybe it's surprising for Western elites, but world is much different place that they have they are think of. And this is, by the way, Reuters report, which is also quite interesting, because according to this news agency, China and India will receive or already did receive record amount of Russian crude oil in previous months, in the May. And I did share this information on my Telegram channel. Also, you can read the numbers, the exact numbers. But according to Reuters, Russian crude oil imports by China and India in May are expected to hit an all-time high, as buyers are happy to, you know, receive Russian crude oil under discount. So Russia is selling oil over this Western price cap of $60, but less than many other oil exporter states. And it's obvious that not just China and India, but many other countries are happy to buy Russian oil and re-export it, or oil itself or oil products, and make some money on it. So as you can see, Western elites did fail quite dramatically in their attempt to destroy Russian economy and Russian Energo sector. At least that's how it seems for this moment. And this is also RT's report, and this news gonna be last one for today's update. So according to RT, Russian industrial production has increased, and in April industrial output was 5.2% up in comparison to same period of last year, which is quite a good results. As you know, many economies all around the world, and especially in the Western states, which may be surprising for some, are in decline. And during this time, Russian economy, despite these thousands and thousands of Western sanctions, are managing to increase its capacities, and Russian GDP is increasing also, maybe not as greatly as everyone in Russia would like to see, but still, fact itself that Russian economy is increasing its production capacities and Russian GDP is increasing, just the fact itself is just unbelievable and surprising. For many in Russia also, not just outside of Russia, but for many of us here too. And yes, that's, you know, one should say that people that are in charge of Russian economy, I mean, they are doing a good job. They truly are doing a good job to keep economy running, despite all those obstacles that was created by Western elites. And as I said, that was the last news for today's update. I hope you will find this video interesting, and if so, please hit that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like, and if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Twitter, Facebook, Telegram, or any other platform that you are active on. This will probably help me to reach wider audience, and if you think this channel is interesting, informative, useful, and deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a great day and take care. See you soon.